All right, in this video, I want to share with you the secret to the Christian life. You say, the secret? Yeah, absolutely. I'm at a men's retreat this weekend and learning some new stuff for me, being refreshed on some old stuff as well. What I'm going to do is just share a couple of passages that we've been studying this weekend. I'm going to start in the book of Philippians, chapter 4 and verse 11. Here's the Apostle Paul making some incredible statements. He says, "Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content." That's the word that we've been focusing on this weekend, the word content or contentment. He says in verse 12, "I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Now, in a lot of Christian circles, people will focus on that verse, verse 13. And one of the things that was pointed out is that verse 13 is one of the most misquoted verses in the entire Bible. In order to understand what a verse is saying, you have to read it in context. And the context is that he's talking about contentment. And he's talking about how circumstances really aren't supposed to matter all that much. Everybody goes through difficult times. I mean, look at what Paul says. He said, "I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content." He says, "I know how to be brought low. I know how to abound in any and every circumstance. I've learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. It doesn't matter which way the pendulum swings. I've learned the secret," he says. "I can do all things through him who gives me strength. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And really, it doesn't matter what circumstance that I'm in. Now, this is something I'm learning. This is not something I've mastered. Um, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. So I'm trying to allow the Lord to do some work in my life on this particular passage. Let's see. There's another one we talked about over in the book of Philippians. Same book, Philippians chapter 2 and verse 14. He says, "Do all things without grumbling or disputing." Now, what if you just said, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do for the next 24 hours. I'm not going to grumble and I'm not going to dispute." In other words, I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to argue. That would be some great homework, wouldn't it? So he says, "Do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast to the word of life, so that in the day of Christ I may be proud that I did not run in vain or labor in vain." Now, look at what he says. Do all things without grumbling or disputing. Do everything without complaining and arguing. If you go back to the Old Testament, it was the complaining of the people of Israel that pretty much got them assigned to 40 years of wandering around the wilderness, when the trek that they were on should have taken 11 miles. 11 miles. And they spent 40 years just going around in circles, because God had it with all the complaining and arguing among them. Where is the passage in Numbers chapter 21, where the people said, we there's no food and there's no water, and we detest this miserable manna, that's being given from God. Well, the thing is, God had miraculously provided for them, and they were fussing about it. And he points out something. He says, "That you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world." See, we're supposed to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. We're supposed to be making a difference in this world. And if we're complaining and arguing, people are going to look at us and say, how do you have anything different than me? How are you any different from me at all? And the fact is, really, we're not. If we call ourselves Christians, but we're complaining and arguing all the time. He says, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast to the word of life. We hold on to God's word, but you know what? We hold on to Jesus because he is the word of life. So that in the day of Christ, I may be proud that I did not run or in vain or labor in vain. Paul's saying, I want to be able to say that. I didn't waste my time because you hold on to Jesus. All right, there's one more I want to share with you, and it's from the book of 1 Timothy, chapter 6. Now, we want to talk about some homework. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 6. But godliness with contentment is great gain. Now, we spent a good bit of time on this during our sessions today. Godliness, being a godly person, living for the Lord, with contentment. Being okay with where you are. Now, it's not wrong to want more, and it's not wrong to want to move ahead, but sometimes it just consumes a person's life. He says, godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. Now, just stop there. Is there anybody who you know who would not be content with food and clothing? If that's, if that's all we have, if all I can say is I've got a roof over my head, clothes on my back, food in my refrigerator and pantry, and if I can say that, I'm good. And you know what? I'm better off than so many people in this world who don't have those things. He says, but if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. And then he throws this wrench into the system. Verse 9. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money, not money, but the love of money, is a root, not the root, but a root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving, think of it, he calls it a craving, that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. In other words, because of their stupidity, they've made life really, really miserable and difficult for themselves. Now think of that. We brought nothing into the world. We cannot take anything out of the world. In other words, don't put your stock in stuff. If I desire to be rich, if what I'm wanting to do is be like the world around me, desire to be rich means that, well, we're just fed by the world, and we're told over and over again, you need more, you're not enough, you need this, you need that. And that's what advertising is built on, isn't it? So those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. And he says, even because a person marries themselves to money and is not satisfied with God, he says that craving causes some people to wander away from the faith. It causes them to put their faith either on the back burner or to turn the burner off completely and to just focus on making money. Making money is fine. You want to be a provider for your family if you're a godly man. But that's not what runs your life. What runs your life is the fact that you have surrendered your life to Jesus Christ. So while I'm out here on this retreat, I just wanted to share these things with you. And I hope you're blessed by them. If you'd like what's going on this channel, if you're blessed by it, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. I look forward to visiting with you again next time.